Like, subscribe, and turn on notification for more amazing video. Respect!
Alien girl living on the streets returns Diplomat's lost wallet. What he did next stunned everyone. The gleaming spires of Tarius rose like metallic fingers, grasping at the stars, their surfaces reflecting the amber glow of the setting sun. Ambassador James Garrett adjusted his leather suit with its distinctive silver accents, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Earth's relations with the Tarian Confederacy hung in the balance, and he was the man tasked with preventing an interstellar incident. Ambassador Garrett, the High Council expects your presence within the hour. His earpiece crackled with his aide's voice. Understood. I'm taking a brief walk to clear my head before the negotiations, James replied, his deep voice steady despite the tension coiling in his gut. The central plaza of Tarias teemed with alien life. Merchants hawking exotic wares, government officials in flowing robes, and the ever-present underclass that existed in every society, regardless of how advanced. James moved through the crowd with purpose, his tall, muscular frame and confident stride drawing curious glances from the locals. He paused at a vendor selling what appeared to be fruit, though the vibrant purple color and pulsing membrane covering it made him hesitate. The merchant, a six-limbed creature with translucent skin, gestured enthusiastically. Finest Melbari in the quadrant, human. Strengthens the body, sharpens the mind. James smiled politely. Perhaps another time. As he turned away, a group of young Tarians, adolescents by their markings, rushed past him, their laughter like tinkling glass. The collision was brief, but enough to throw him slightly off balance. He regained his composure quickly, nodding to a concerned onlooker before continuing on his way. It wasn't until 3 blocks later, when he reached for his identification to pass through a security checkpoint, that he realized his wallet was missing. His blood ran cold. Beyond the credits and identification, that wallet contained a data chip with encrypted access codes to Earth's diplomatic servers. Information that could compromise not just his mission, but potentially Earth's entire position in the galactic community. Damn it, he muttered, retracing his steps with increasing urgency. The plaza had already begun to empty as the work cycle ended, and the shadows grew longer between the towering buildings. Meanwhile, in a narrow alley off the main plaza, Laia huddled against a waste reclamation unit, trying to absorb its residual heat. Her turquoise eyes scanned the darkening street warily, glowing slightly in the dim light. Her bluish skin, marked with faint luminescent patterns, was smudged with dirt, and her silver hair hung in tangled strands around her delicate face. At 16 cycles, she'd been surviving on Tarias' streets for 3 years since her parents had been taken during the purification, the government's euphemism for removing undesirable elements from society. Being half Eloran in a society that prized genetic purity had marked her for exclusion from the moment of her birth. She was about to retreat deeper into her hiding place when something caught her eye. A sleek object lying in the gutter, partially hidden by debris. Curiosity overcame caution, and she darted forward to retrieve it. It was a wallet made of some unfamiliar material that felt warm to the touch. Opening it revealed strange currency, identification cards with an alien script, and a small metallic chip that pulsed with a faint blue light. The face on the identification was unmistakably human, a species rare on Tarias and typically seen only in the diplomatic quarter. Laia's first thought was of how much food the currency might buy. Her stomach cramped painfully, reminding her that she hadn't eaten in 2 days. But something stopped her. Perhaps it was the stories her mother had told her of Earth, where her father had come from. Or perhaps it was simply that she'd had enough of taking what wasn't hers to survive. I need to return this, she whispered to herself, tracing the face on the identification with a slender finger. Finding a human in Tarias wouldn't be easy, but the diplomatic quarter was a logical place to start. It would be risky. Street children like her were routinely arrested if caught near government buildings, but the decision felt right in a way few things had since she'd been alone. Clutching the wallet tightly, Laia slipped out of the alley and into the gathering darkness, her path illuminated only by the ambient glow of the city and the faint luminescence of her own skin. Across the plaza, James was growing desperate. He'd retraced his steps twice, questioned vendors, and even considered reporting the theft to local authorities, though that would mean admitting he'd lost sensitive information, potentially ending his career. As the last of the daylight faded from the sky, he stood in the center of the now empty plaza, weighing his options. That's when he saw her, a small figure moving with the furtive grace of someone accustomed to avoiding attention. Something about her purposeful approach made him wait rather than continuing his search. As she drew closer, he could see she was young, dressed in tattered brown clothing that had seen better days. Her skin had a bluish tint that glowed softly in the twilight, and her silver hair caught the light of the street lamps. But it was her eyes that captured his attention, large, turquoise, and filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "Excuse me," she said in halting standard, holding something out in front of her. "Is this yours?" In her hand was his wallet. James stared at his wallet in disbelief, then at the small alien girl holding it. Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by curiosity. "Yes, it's mine," he said, accepting it with careful hands. "Thank you. You have no idea how important this is." The girl's luminescent skin pulsed slightly, a physiological response that James recognized as nervousness in some Tarian subspecies. She began to back away, her mission complete. "Wait," James called. "What's your name?" She hesitated, turquoise eyes darting around the plaza as if checking for threats. "Laia," she finally answered, her voice barely audible. "I'm James Garrett, Earth's ambassador to the Tarian Confederacy." He opened the wallet, noting with relief that everything remained intact, including the crucial data chip. "You've done me an enormous service, Laia. Please let me repay you." He extracted several high-denomination credit chips, but to his surprise, Laia shook her head. "No payment," she said, her standard improving as she grew more comfortable. "It was right thing." James studied her more carefully. The tattered clothing, the dirt smudges on her face, the wary posture, all spoke of a hard life on the streets. Yet here she was, refusing payment for returning something that could have fed her for months. "When did you last eat?" he asked. Laia's eyes widened slightly. 2 days, she admitted. James made a decision that surprised even himself. "Come with me. Let's get you a proper meal at least." Her hesitation was palpable. "Not allowed. Genetic undesirables prohibited in Diplomat Quarter." The term hit James like a physical blow. Genetic undesirables? What does that mean? "Half Eloran," she explained, gesturing to her bluish skin. "Half human. Not pure, not wanted." James felt his diplomatic mask slip, revealing genuine shock. "You're half human?" She nodded, silver hair catching the streetlight. "Father from Earth Colony, Mother Eloran, both taken in purification." A cold anger settled in James's chest. Nothing in his briefings had mentioned purifications or discrimination against mixed species individuals. This information could drastically alter Earth's approach to the upcoming negotiations. "All the more reason you should come with me," he said firmly. "As a human diplomat, I have the right to extend protection to humans and their descendants. That includes you." Before Laia could respond, a harsh spotlight suddenly illuminated them both. 3 Tarian security officers approached, their exoskeletal armor clicking ominously. "Ambassador Garrett," the lead officer said, his translator rendering his chittering speech into flat standard. "This interaction has been flagged as suspicious. Please step away from the undesirable." James straightened to his full height, towering over the Tarian officers. "This young woman has just returned my lost property. I'm expressing my gratitude by offering her a meal." The officer's compound eyes flashed. "Undesirables are not permitted in the diplomatic quarter. We will remove her." "She's under my diplomatic protection," James countered smoothly, though his heart raced. "Article 7 of the Earth-Tarian Accord grants me the right to extend diplomatic courtesy to any individual who renders service to the Earth mission." He was bluffing. No such specific article existed. But he gambled on the officers not knowing the details of the accord. The officers conferred among themselves in rapid clicks and whistles. Laia trembled beside James, her skin's luminescence dimming with fear. "Your claim will be verified," the lead officer finally said. "Until then, the undesirable may accompany you, but remains your responsibility. Any infractions will reflect on Earth's standing." "Understood," James replied, maintaining his authoritative posture until the officers retreated. Once they were alone again, he released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Laia looked up at him with a mixture of awe and confusion. "Why?" she asked simply. James wasn't entirely sure himself. Perhaps it was her honesty in returning the wallet. Perhaps it was learning of her human heritage. Or perhaps it was simply that he'd spent too long navigating the cold calculations of interstellar politics and craved a simple, decent act. Because it's the right thing, he echoed her earlier words. Now let's get you that meal before more of Tarius's finest decide to interrogate us. As they walked toward the diplomatic quarter, James noticed how Leia drew stares, some curious, others openly hostile. She kept her head down, clearly accustomed to such treatment. "Have you ever been to the diplomatic quarter?" he asked, trying to ease her obvious tension. She shook her head. "Not allowed. Barriers scanned for pure genetics." "Well, you're with me now," James said, placing a protective hand on her shoulder, "and I think you'll find that humans have a somewhat different perspective on genetic purity." As they approached the gleaming archway marking the entrance to the diplomatic quarter, James felt a sudden certainty that his impulsive decision would have far-reaching consequences. What had begun as a simple act of kindness was already drawing unwanted attention from Tarian authorities. And yet, looking at the small, brave figure beside him, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. "You deserve more than this street," he said quietly. "Come with me, and I'll help you get into an interstellar boarding academy." Leia stopped walking, her turquoise eyes wide with disbelief. "Why would you do that for me?" James smiled. "Let's just say Earth takes care of its own. Even the ones it didn't know it had." The Earth Embassy stood as a testament to human architectural sensibilities, practical yet imposing, with clean lines and warm lighting that contrasted sharply with the cold, geometric precision of Tarian structures. As James guided Leia through the security checkpoint, the guard's expression shifted from professional detachment to poorly concealed surprise. "Ambassador Garrett," a stern voice called from across the lobby. "A word, please." James recognized the clipped tones of his chief aide, Richard Harlow, a career diplomat whose by-the-book approach had earned him both respect and resentment among the embassy staff. "Wait here," James told Leia, directing her to a comfortable seating area. "I'll be right back." He crossed the marble floor to where Harlow stood, arms folded and disapproval radiating from every pore. "What are you thinking?" Harlow hissed once James was within earshot. "Bringing a street rat into the embassy on the eve of the most critical negotiations of your career?" James bristled at the term. "That street rat just returned my wallet, including the Proxima Protocol codes." Harlow paled slightly. "You lost the codes?" "Temporarily misplaced," James corrected, "and now safely recovered, thanks to her." "That's fortunate, but it doesn't justify compromising our position. The Tarians have already contacted us about your diplomatic protection bluff. Do you have any idea how this looks?" James glanced back at Leia, who sat with perfect stillness, her eyes taking in every detail of the embassy with quiet wonder. "She's half human, Richard. Her parents were taken in something called a purification. Does that sound like the kind of regime we want to be cozying up to?" Harlow's expression tightened. "Our job is to secure the dilithium mining rights, not to critique Tarian social policies. Earth needs those resources, and I'll get them," James assured him, "but I won't ignore a human descendant in need. She stays, at least for tonight." Before Harlow could protest further, a commotion at the embassy entrance drew their attention. A tall, slender figure in a hooded cloak was arguing with the security guards. "I must speak with Ambassador Garrett immediately," a melodious female voice insisted. "It concerns the girl he brought in." James approached cautiously. "I'm Ambassador Garrett. Who are you?" The figure turned, lowering her hood to reveal a stunning Aloran woman. Her skin was a deeper blue than Leia's, with intricate luminescent patterns that pulsed with emotion. Silver hair, more lustrous than the girl's, was elegantly braided away from a face of alien yet captivating beauty. Her eyes, the same turquoise as Leia's, widened at the sight of him. "I am Naya," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that human vocal cords couldn't replicate. "Leia's aunt. I've been searching for her since her parents were taken." From across the lobby, Leia's gasp was audible. She rose from her seat, trembling visibly. "Aunt Naya? You're alive?" The reunion that followed brought a lump to James's throat. Naya embraced her niece with fierce protectiveness, murmuring in their native tongue as Leia clung to her. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," James suggested, acutely aware of the growing audience of embassy staff. In his office, with Harlow reluctantly joining them, Naya's demeanor shifted from emotional to intensely focused. "You've put yourself at considerable risk, Ambassador," she said, her gaze direct and unflinching. "The Tarian High Council doesn't take kindly to interference with their genetic policies." "So I'm beginning to understand," James replied. "What exactly is this purification?" Naya's luminescence dimmed slightly. "Official policy states it's the relocation of genetically undesirable elements to labor colonies. The reality is far darker." Laya, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "They're experimenting on us, using mixed species genetics to develop biological weapons." James felt the blood drain from his face. "How do you know this?" "Because I've seen the facilities," Naya said. "I work with the Resistance. We've been documenting the atrocities for years, hoping to gain outside intervention." Her eyes locked with James's. "Your arrival, and your unexpected interest in Laya, presents an opportunity we never anticipated." Harlow shifted uncomfortably. "Ambassador, I must advise caution. These are serious allegations without proof." "I have proof," Naya countered, producing a small data crystal from beneath her cloak. "Everything we've gathered, including evidence that the dilithium mining operations you're so eager to secure are powered by forced labor from the purification camps." James accepted the crystal, feeling its weight far beyond its physical presence. "This changes everything about our approach to the negotiations." "It puts Earth in a powerful position," Naya agreed, "but it also puts you, and now Laya, in grave danger." As James processed this information, he became increasingly aware of Naya's presence. The subtle fragrance that emanated from her skin, the grace with which she moved, the intelligence that shone in her eyes. Despite the gravity of the situation, he found himself drawn to her in a way that transcended diplomatic concerns. She seemed to sense his attention, her luminescent patterns shifting to a pattern he couldn't interpret. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition of shared purpose, perhaps, or something more primal. "What do you propose?" James asked, breaking the charged silence. "Use the information to secure not just mining rights, but humanitarian concessions," Naya suggested. "The Tarian leadership values their galactic reputation too much to risk exposure." "And in the meantime," Harlow interjected, "the girl can't stay here indefinitely." "She comes with me," Naya said firmly. "I have safe houses throughout the city." James shook his head. "The Tarians are already watching for her. The safest place is here, under official Earth protection." Naya studied him, her expression unreadable to human eyes. "Then I stay as well, as her guardian." "That can be arranged," James replied, perhaps too quickly. Harlow shot him a knowing look, but remained silent. As the night deepened, plans were made, security arrangements discussed. Throughout it all, James found his attention repeatedly drawn to Naya, her intelligence, her courage, her fierce protectiveness of Laya, and beneath it all, an unmistakable current of attraction that neither of them acknowledged but both increasingly felt. The stakes had just become infinitely higher, both diplomatically and personally. "Ambassador Garrett, your presence is requested in the secure communication room," the embassy AI announced, its voice cutting through the tense silence that had fallen over James's office. James exchanged a glance with Naya, who had been explaining the intricacies of the Resistance network. "At this hour, High Counselor Dreth of the Tarian Confederacy has requested an immediate audience," the AI replied. "He is en route to the embassy and will arrive in approximately 15 minutes. Harlow, who had been quietly taking notes, nearly dropped his datapad. "High Counselor Dreth? Here? Now?" "Who is Dreth?" James asked, noting the sudden pallor in Laya's luminescent patterns. "The architect of the purification program," Naya explained, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "And one of the most powerful figures in the Tarian government." James's mind raced. "He can't find you here. Either of you." "My quarters," Harlow suggested reluctantly. "They're in the secure wing." "No Tarian official would be permitted access without prior clearance." James nodded. "Perfect. Take them there now, through the service corridors." As Harlow ushered Naya and Leia toward a concealed door at the back of the office, Naya turned back. "Be careful, Ambassador. Dreth didn't rise to power by being foolish." Their eyes locked, and James felt that same inexplicable pull he'd experienced earlier. "I'll handle him," he assured her with more confidence than he felt. After they departed, James quickly reviewed the data crystal's contents, committing key points to memory before securing it in his personal safe. He changed into a fresh diplomatic uniform, straightened his posture, and prepared to face the unexpected visitor. High Counselor Dreth arrived with an entourage of 6 security officers, his tall, spindly frame draped in elaborate ceremonial robes that rustled with his every movement. His face, if the arrangement of sensory organs could be called such, was a study in evolutionary divergence from humanity, with multiple compound eyes and mandibles that clicked rhythmically as he spoke. "Ambassador Garrett," Dreth's translator rendered in flawless standard, "I apologize for the late hour, but certain matters cannot wait for morning." "No apology necessary, High Counselor," James replied smoothly. "Earth's representatives stand ready to serve at any hour." They settled in the embassy's formal reception room, where James ordered refreshments suitable for Terrian physiology. The rituals of diplomacy provided comfortable familiarity, even as James's mind raced with contingency plans. "I'll be direct, Ambassador," Dreth said after the pleasantries were exhausted. "It has come to our attention that you have granted protection to certain individuals whose presence in the diplomatic quarter violates our sovereign laws." James maintained his diplomatic smile. "I'm afraid I don't follow, High Counselor. The only individuals under Earth's protection are those entitled to it by interstellar law." Dreth's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation James knew. "A genetic undesirable was observed entering your embassy earlier today. Shortly thereafter, a known dissident followed. Neither has been seen leaving." "I can assure you that Earth respects Terrian sovereignty," James replied carefully. "However, we also adhere to the Galactic Charter's provisions regarding the protection of human descendants throughout settled space." "Human descendants?" Dreth's compound eyes gleamed with interest. "You claim the undesirable child has human lineage?" "Not claim, High Counselor. Confirm she is half human, which entitles her to Earth's protection under Article 12 of the Charter." Dreth leaned forward. "Most inconvenient, particularly given tomorrow's negotiations." "On the contrary," James countered, "I believe it presents an opportunity for deeper understanding between our peoples." The conversation continued in this vein, diplomatic feints and parries that James navigated with practiced skill. Throughout, he was acutely aware of the precarious position he occupied. One misstep could jeopardize not only the negotiations, but also Laia and Naya's safety. After Dreth finally departed with thinly veiled threats disguised as diplomatic pleasantries, James exhaled deeply and headed for Harlow's quarters. The night was far from over. He found Harlow pacing anxiously outside his own rooms. "He's gone?" "For now," James confirmed, "but he knows they're here. We need to move quickly." Inside, Laia had fallen asleep on Harlow's couch, exhaustion finally claiming her. Naya sat nearby, her luminescence dimmed to a soft glow that cast gentle shadows across the room. "You handled him well," she said quietly as James entered. "I could hear parts of your conversation through the ventilation system." "Diplomatic training," James replied modestly, "though I admit the stakes rarely feel this personal." Harlow cleared his throat. "I should check the security protocols, ensure we weren't compromised during Dreth's visit." He glanced meaningfully between James and Naya before slipping out, leaving them alone save for the sleeping Laia. "We have much to discuss before morning," James said, settling into a chair across from Naya. "The data you provided, it's compelling, but I need to understand more about how the purification program operates." They worked through the night, heads bent together over holographic displays, voices low to avoid waking Laia. Naya explained the intricacies of Tarian politics, the factions within the government, the potential allies they might find. James shared Earth's strategic interests, the leverage points they could use, the lines they wouldn't cross. As the night deepened, their professional collaboration evolved into something more personal. Cultural barriers dissolved as they exchanged stories. James of Earth's troubled history with discrimination and humanity's hard-won progress toward unity. Naya of Aloran traditions and the mixed communities that had flourished in secret corners of Terrian society before the purifications began. "Your species fascinates me," Naya admitted during a rare pause in their work. "Humans are so contradictory, capable of terrible violence, yet driven by such powerful empathy." "We contain multitudes," James said with a smile. It's both our greatest weakness and our greatest strength. It's beautiful, she said softly, her luminescent patterns shifting to a warm, pulsing glow that James was beginning to recognize as attraction. Most species evolve towards specialization. Humans embrace adaptability, flexibility, passion. The word hung between them, charged with meaning. James became acutely aware of their proximity, of the subtle fragrance emanating from her skin, of the way her eyes, so alien yet so expressive, held his. "Naya," he began, uncertain of what he wanted to say. She reached out, her slender fingers tracing the contours of his face with gentle curiosity. "In my culture, this level of connection, mind to mind, purpose to purpose, naturally extends to physical connection. Is it the same for humans?" James caught her hand in his, feeling the strange, wonderful contrast of her cool skin against his warmth. "Often," he admitted, "though diplomatic protocols generally frown upon it." A smile curved her lips. "Then perhaps we should be less diplomatic and more human." What followed transcended species and culture, a coming together that felt both alien and achingly familiar. Their differences became points of fascination rather than barriers, each discovery a new delight. Her luminescence responded to his touch, creating patterns of light that mapped their journey into intimacy. His strength, so carefully controlled in his diplomatic life, found release in her embrace. In those hours before dawn, as Taraya slept and Laia dreamed nearby, James and Naya forged a connection that neither had anticipated, but both recognized as transformative. It was more than physical release. It was alliance, understanding, and the first tendrils of something that might, given time and circumstance, grow into love. As they lay entwined in the soft darkness, the challenges ahead seemed both more daunting and more surmountable. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Dawn broke over Tarias, painting the metallic skyline in hues of amber and gold. James woke to the gentle pulsing of Naya's luminescence against his skin, a sensation both alien and intimately familiar after their night together. For a moment, he allowed himself to simply watch her sleep, marveling at how quickly his life had changed since a small alien girl had returned his wallet. The embassy's communication system chimed softly, breaking the peaceful moment. James carefully extricated himself from Naya's embrace, pulled on his clothes, and moved to the adjacent room to answer. Harlow's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. "We have a situation, Ambassador. The negotiations have been rescheduled." "Rescheduled? For when?" 3 hours from now. Dreth claims it's due to scheduling conflicts, but the timing is suspicious." James ran a hand through his hair. "He's trying to throw us off balance. Did you get any sleep?" "Enough," Harlow replied, though the shadows under his eyes suggested otherwise. "I've prepared preliminary briefing materials based on the information from Naya's data crystal. They're waiting in your secure inbox." "Good work. I'll review them immediately. How's Laia?" "Still sleeping. Embassy Medical gave her a thorough checkup while you were occupied." Harlow's tone remained professional, but James caught the knowing look. "She's malnourished, but otherwise healthy. They've started her on supplements." "Thank you, Richard. I know this isn't exactly standard diplomatic procedure." Harlow's expression softened slightly. "Nothing about this mission has been standard, sir. I'll meet you in the strategy room in 30 minutes. After ending the call, James returned to find Naya awake, her luminescent patterns shifting in what he now recognized as contemplation. "Dreth has moved up the negotiation," he told her, sitting on the edge of the bed. "We have 3 hours to prepare." Naya reached for his hand, her cool fingers intertwining with his. "He's trying to pressure you into mistakes." "A common tactic," James agreed, "but one that works both ways. A rushed negotiation means less time for them to investigate your evidence or prepare counter-arguments." She studied him with those captivating turquoise eyes. "You're not what I expected when I first heard Earth was sending a diplomat." "Oh?" He raised an eyebrow. "And what did you expect?" "Someone more cautious, traditional, bound by protocols." Her luminescence pulsed in a pattern he now recognized as amusement. "Not someone who would take in a street child, stand up to Dreth, or spend the night with an alien resistance fighter?" James smiled. Humanity has learned that the most effective diplomacy often happens outside formal chambers. Connection, understanding, empathy, these are our greatest tools. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead gently against hers in a gesture that bridged their different customs. Last night wasn't just pleasure, Naya. It was alliance. Her patterns shifted to a deeper, more intense glow. Among my people, such connections are sacred. What humans might call making love, we call truth-sharing. It creates bonds that transcend ordinary relationships. Is that why I feel like I've known you much longer than a day? James asked softly. Yes. Our biochemistries are compatible in ways that create resonance. She traced the line of his jaw with a delicate finger. It's rare between species, but when it happens, it's considered a blessing from the ancestors. The intimacy of the moment was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Laya's voice called tentatively, Aunt Naya? Ambassador Garrett? They separated reluctantly, exchanging a look that promised continuation later. Naya called for Leia to enter, and the girl appeared, looking remarkably different after a night of safety and care. Her silver hair had been washed and combed, her face was clean, and she wore fresh clothing provided by the embassy. Simple but dignified attire that transformed her from street urchin to young lady. You look wonderful, James said warmly. Laya's luminescence brightened with what he now recognized as the Ellerin equivalent of a blush. The human doctors were very kind. They gave me medicine and food. How are you feeling? Naya asked, moving to embrace her niece. Better. Stronger. Laya's eyes darted between the two adults, a knowing look beyond her years crossing her features. You've truth shared, she observed matter-of-factly. Now it was James's turn to feel heat rising to his face. Naya laughed softly. Ellerin children are taught to recognize such bonds early. It's considered part of understanding social structures. I see, James said, clearing his throat. Well, we have work to do. The negotiations with the Tarian Council have been moved up. Laya's expression grew serious. Because of me? Partly, James admitted, seeing no reason to shield her from the truth. But also because of what your aunt has revealed about the purification program. High Counselor Dreth is trying to control the situation. He's afraid, Laya said with surprising insight. The purifications are supposed to be secret. If Earth knows... Exactly, James confirmed. And that gives us leverage. But using it effectively requires careful planning. They spent the next hour strategizing, with Laya providing surprisingly valuable insights into Tarian security protocols she'd observed during her years on the streets. Her perspective as someone who had learned to navigate the system's blind spots proved invaluable. As the time for preparation grew short, James excused himself to change into formal diplomatic attire. When he returned, he found Naya waiting alone, Laya having gone with Harlow to review some final details. You look every inch the Earth ambassador, Naya said, her eyes appreciatively taking in his tailored uniform with its subtle symbols of Earth authority. And you look like someone who should remain safely hidden until this is over, he replied, though his gaze conveyed how much he'd rather have her by his side. I've spent years in the shadows, she reminded him. One more day won't matter. He stepped closer, drawn by the magnetic pull between them that seemed to strengthen rather than diminish with time. When this is over, assuming we succeed, what then? For Laya? The boarding academy you promised, I hope. And for you, he pressed, taking her hands in his. Her luminescence pulsed with emotion. I hadn't planned beyond bringing down the purification program, beyond ensuring Laya's safety. Consider planning a bit further, James suggested, his voice low and intimate. Perhaps to include diplomatic liaison work with Earth. We could use someone with your insights, and I could use more time to explore this resonance between us. Her patterns shifted to a configuration he hadn't seen before. Hope, perhaps, or possibility. Humans truly are remarkable, she murmured, always finding paths where others see only walls. Their farewell was brief but intense, a promise of continuation rather than an ending. As James headed toward the negotiation chambers, he carried with him not just the evidence that might change Tarian society, but also the lingering sensation of Naya's touch, a reminder of what he was fighting for beyond abstract diplomatic goals. Humanity's strength, he reflected, had always been its capacity to make the political personal, to fight not just for principles, but for people. Today, he would embody that strength. The Tarian High Council chamber was a marvel of alien architecture, a vast dome with walls of living crystal that shifted colors with the emotional tenor of the proceedings. Today, they pulsed with tense amber and deep crimson as James took a seat across from High Counselor Dreth and 5 other Tarian officials. Ambassador Garrett, Dreth's mandibles clicked in what passed for a cordial greeting. "We appreciate your flexibility regarding this morning's schedule adjustment." "Earth values adaptability," James replied smoothly. "It's one of our defining traits." The negotiations began with standard diplomatic formalities, expressions of mutual respect, acknowledgments of shared interests, careful dancing around the true stakes. James played his role perfectly, giving no indication of the explosive evidence in his possession or the 2 undesirables hidden in his embassy. Meanwhile, back at the Earth Embassy, Harlow paced nervously in the security center, monitoring the feeds from the negotiation chamber. Laya sat nearby, watching the screens with intense concentration, while Naya reviewed emergency evacuation protocols with the human security chief. "Movement at the perimeter," announced a young security officer, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. 6 Tarian security vehicles approaching from the North Quadrant. Harlow frowned. "Standard diplomatic escort?" "Negative, sir. These are military-grade assault transports." Naya's luminescence dimmed with concern. "They're coming for us." The security chief, a veteran named Commander Reeves, straightened his broad shoulders. "Let them try. Earth embassies are sovereign territory, and we don't surrender our people." "They're not technically Earth citizens," Harlow pointed out, ever the pragmatist. Reeves fixed him with a steely gaze. "The ambassador granted them protection. That's good enough for me." As the Tarian forces surrounded the embassy, back in the negotiation chamber, James was methodically laying groundwork for his revelations. "Earth's interest in Tarian dilithium is well established," he was saying, "but equally important to us is ensuring that our resource partnerships align with our ethical standards." Dreth's compound eyes gleamed. "Ethics are cultural constructs, Ambassador. What seems unethical to humans may be perfectly acceptable, even necessary to Tarians." "Perhaps," James conceded, "but certain principles transcend cultural differences. The treatment of sentient beings, for instance." A subtle tension rippled through the Tarian delegation. "I fail to see the relevance to our dilithium negotiations," Dreth said, his translator unable to fully mask the edge in his voice. James removed a small data crystal from his pocket and placed it on the table. "This contains evidence that the dilithium mines Earth seeks access to are operated using forced labor from your purification camps." The chamber's walls flashed dark purple. Shock, James had learned. Dreth's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Preposterous," another counselor interjected. "The purification program is a humane relocation initiative for genetically unstable elements." "Is that so?" James activated the crystal, projecting holographic images above the table. Documentation of labor camps, medical experimentation facilities, genetic harvesting operations. These images suggest otherwise. As the Tarian Council reeled from James's revelation, the situation at the embassy escalated rapidly. The Tarian forces had deployed sonic disruptors, devices designed to penetrate diplomatic barriers through frequency manipulation. "They're trying to create a breach in our security field," Commander Reeves explained as alarms blared throughout the embassy. "Standard procedure would be evacuation, but we can't leave," Naya finished for him. "They'd intercept us before we reached orbit." Laya, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. "The maintenance tunnels. They connect to the old city infrastructure. We could use them to reach the resistance safe house in the industrial sector." Harlow stared at her. "How do you know about the maintenance tunnels?" "I lived in them for a year," she replied simply. "The Tarians forget what street children see and learn." Back in the negotiation chamber, James was pressing his advantage. Earth is prepared to offer significant technological exchange for dilithium access, but only under conditions that include humanitarian reforms. "You overstep, Ambassador," Dreth hissed. "Tarian internal affairs are not subject to Earth's moral posturing." "This isn't posturing," James countered. "It's leverage. Earth could take this evidence to the Galactic Council. How would that affect Tarius' standing? Your trade agreements with other systems?" Before Dreth could respond, an aide rushed in, chittering urgently in the Tarian language. Dreth's compound eyes swiveled toward James with newfound malice. "It seems, Ambassador, that while you lecture us on ethics, your embassy harbors fugitives from Tarian justice. Our forces are currently retrieving them." James maintained his composure, though his heart raced. "Any individuals under Earth's protection are there legally. An attack on our embassy would constitute an act of war." "Not an attack," Dreth corrected. "A lawful extraction of criminals, including a known resistance operative who provided your so-called evidence." The revelation that Dreth knew about Naya sent ice through James's veins, but he didn't let it show. "This operative, do they have a name?" "Naya of House Alora," Dreth said, watching James carefully for reaction. "A particularly troublesome dissident with a personal vendetta against our genetic policies. And apparently," he added with malicious satisfaction, "a personal connection to Earth's ambassador." The chamber walls flashed with swirls of deep blue, the Tarian equivalent of salacious gossip. James realized that Dreth had been playing his own game all along, gathering intelligence while James thought he held the upper hand. "Your personal entanglements compromise these negotiations," Dreth continued, "but I am willing to offer a solution that serves all parties. Surrender the fugitives, particularly Naya, and Earth will receive exclusive rights to the dilithium deposits in the Kyrian Belt, our richest vein, previously unavailable to off-worlders." It was a masterful move, appealing to Earth's resource needs while forcing James to choose between diplomatic success and personal loyalty. The other counselors watched expectantly, clearly believing no human diplomat would sacrifice such a prize for mere aliens. James stood, straightening to his full height. "High Counselor Dreth, I came to Tarias to negotiate a dilithium agreement. I will leave with one, but not at the cost of abandoning those under Earth's protection." He tapped his communication device. "Commander Reeves, status report." "Embassy under siege, sir," came the terse reply, audible to all in the chamber. "Tarian forces attempting breach of diplomatic barriers." "Implement Protocol Humanity," James ordered, using the code phrase they had established earlier. "Acknowledged. Protocol Humanity initiated." James turned back to the stunned Tarian Council. "Gentlemen, I suggest we reconvene when you're prepared to negotiate in good faith. In the meantime, be advised that any breach of Earth's diplomatic compound will trigger automated communications to the Galactic Council, releasing all evidence in our possession." As he turned to leave, Dreth's voice stopped him. "You would sacrifice valuable dilithium rights for 2 genetic undesirables? This defies rational calculation." James smiled, a genuine human expression that seemed to unsettle the Tarians more than any threat could have. "That, High Counselor, is precisely what makes humanity different. We calculate with our hearts as well as our minds." With that, he strode from the chamber, leaving behind a council in disarray and a negotiation in shambles. The true battle, he knew, was just beginning. James raced back to the embassy, his diplomatic vehicle weaving through Tarian traffic with reckless precision. The comm unit crackled with urgent updates from Commander Reeves about the deteriorating situation. "Status report," James demanded as he approached the embassy perimeter. "Barriers holding at 60%, sir," Reeves replied. "But we have another problem. Naya is gone." "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "She left a message for you, surrendered herself to Tarian authorities in exchange for their withdrawal from embassy grounds." James felt as though he'd been struck. "And they accepted?" "Affirmative. Forces pulled back 10 minutes ago. They're escorting her to the High Council chamber now." "And Leia?" "Safe with us, though understandably distraught." James's mind raced. Naya had sacrificed herself to protect Leia and the Earth mission. A noble act, but one he couldn't allow to stand. "Implement the second phase of Protocol Humanity," he ordered, "and have my combat suit ready." "Sir?" Reeves sounded startled. "That's not standard diplomatic." "Nothing about this mission has been standard, Commander." "Execute the order." At the embassy, James found Leia waiting in the secure room, her luminescence dimmed to a barely visible glow, the Eleran equivalent of profound distress. "She left because of me," the girl said, her voice hollow. "She said it was the only way to keep me safe." James knelt before her, meeting those turquoise eyes so like her aunt's. "Your aunt is brave and selfless, Leia, but she's not the only one." He squeezed her shoulder gently. Humans don't abandon those they care about, ever. While embassy staff prepared for the operation, James reviewed the intelligence Harlow had gathered. Naya was being held in a ceremonial antechamber adjacent to the High Council chamber, awaiting a public pronouncement of her crimes. Security would be heavy but focused on preventing escape, not repelling an extraction. "This is insane," Harlow muttered as James donned the combat suit, a deceptively sleek outfit that contained advanced Earth military technology rarely seen outside human space. "You're a diplomat, not a commando." "I'm human," James corrected, checking the non-lethal weapons concealed within the suit. "We contain multitudes, remember?" The extraction team consisted of James, Commander Reeves, and 4 embassy security personnel, all veterans of Earth's Special Diplomatic Service, an elite unit trained for precisely these scenarios. Their plan was audacious but quintessentially human, a direct approach disguised as diplomatic protocol. They arrived at the High Council chamber in full diplomatic regalia, James at the lead with a formal document case in hand. The Tarian guards, expecting perhaps a final negotiation attempt, allowed them entry with minimal resistance. "Ambassador Garrett," Dreth's voice dripped with satisfaction as James entered the antechamber, "have you reconsidered my generous offer?" "I have," James replied, his posture relaxed yet commanding, "and I've brought Earth's response." He opened the document case, releasing a pulse of energy that temporarily disrupted Tarian neural functions, a non-lethal technology developed specifically for species with compound nervous systems. The guards collapsed, leaving only Dreth conscious but immobilized. Naya, restrained in a containment field at the far end of the chamber, stared in disbelief as James approached and deactivated her bonds with a device from his suit. "You came for me," she whispered, her luminescence pulsing with emotion. "Of course I did," he replied, helping her to her feet. "Humans are stubborn that way." Dreth, partially recovering, managed to activate an alarm. "You cannot escape," he hissed. "The building is surrounded." "We don't need to escape," James informed him calmly. "We just need to reach the roof." As security alerts blared throughout the building, the extraction team moved with practiced efficiency. Commander Reeves and his personnel created diversions on multiple floors, while James and Naya made their way to the rooftop landing pad where an Earth diplomatic shuttle waited. Its presence there entirely legal under interstellar protocols. "This is madness," Naya said as they raced up the final stairwell. "Even if we reach the embassy, they'll never stop hunting me." "They won't have to hunt you," James replied, "because you won't be a fugitive anymore." On the rooftop, they encountered a final squad of Tarian guards. James stepped forward, activating the combat suit's full capabilities. What followed was a demonstration of why humans, despite their unimposing appearance by galactic standards, were respected and sometimes feared throughout settled space. James moved with enhanced speed and precision, neutralizing the guards with efficient, non-lethal strikes. The combat suit amplified his natural strength and reflexes, making him seem almost supernatural to Tarian eyes. Within moments, the path was clear. As they boarded the shuttle, Naya looked at James with newfound wonder. "I've heard stories about human warriors, but I never truly believed them." "We prefer diplomacy," James said with a smile, "but we're prepared for alternatives." Back at the embassy, they found the Tarian forces had withdrawn entirely, replaced by observers from the Galactic Council, summoned by Harlow's activation of emergency protocols. The presence of neutral witnesses had transformed the situation from a bilateral dispute to an interstellar incident. In the embassy's secure conference room, James revealed the final phase of his strategy. On view screens around the room, footage began playing on every public channel in Tarias. Carefully selected evidence of the purification camps, broadcast by resistance cells using Earth encryption protocols. "The Tarian public never knew the truth about the purifications," James explained. "Now they do, and public opinion is a powerful force, even in authoritarian systems." Within hours, the High Council requested new negotiations, this time with Galactic Council observers present. Dreth, facing both external pressure and internal dissent, was forced to accept terms that included not only dilithium mining rights for Earth, but also comprehensive reforms to the Tarian genetic policies, including the immediate dismantling of the purification camps. As the final agreements were signed, Dreth approached James with barely contained fury. "You've humiliated me, human, destroyed decades of genetic purity work. I've helped Tarius rejoin the galactic community as equals, not pariahs, James corrected. Your people deserve better than to be defined by fear of difference. 3 days later, as the diplomatic furor began to settle, James found himself in his embassy quarters with Naya, watching as Leia packed for her journey to Earth's prestigious Interstellar Academy, her admission fast-tracked by James's personal recommendation. She'll thrive there, Naya said softly. Earth education systems are renowned for valuing diversity. And what about you? James asked, taking her hand. The Council has granted you full amnesty and citizenship rights. You could stay on Tarius, help guide the reforms? Her luminescence pulsed in that now familiar pattern he'd come to recognize as affection. I could, she agreed, or I could accept that position as cultural liaison to Earth's diplomatic corps. I hear the ambassador is quite persuasive. James smiled, drawing her closer. I've been told I have my moments. You've changed everything, she murmured, her cool fingers tracing the contours of his face. For Leia, for Tarius, for me. It all started with a lost wallet, he reminded her, and a brave girl who did the right thing. Their lips met in a kiss that bridged worlds. Different biologies, different cultures, united by something uniquely powerful. The resonance between them had only grown stronger through their shared trials, evolving from attraction to something deeper and more profound. Later, as they lay entwined in the soft darkness of his quarters, their bodies finding that perfect harmony that transcended their differences, James reflected on the strange, wonderful path that had brought them together. A simple act of honesty from a street child had cascaded into diplomatic revolution, cultural transformation, and now personal fulfillment. What are you thinking? Naya asked, her luminescence creating dancing patterns across his skin. That humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or even our adaptability, he replied, tracing the glowing patterns on her blue skin. It's our capacity to care about individuals, not just abstractions, to fight for one person as fiercely as for an entire world. She smiled, the expression now perfectly natural on her alien features. Perhaps that's why the universe needs humans, to remind the rest of us what truly matters. As dawn broke over Tarius, painting the city in hues of gold and promise, 3 figures stood on the embassy's landing pad. A human diplomat who had risked everything for principle, an alien resistance fighter who had found unexpected alliance, and a young girl whose simple act of honesty had changed the course of worlds. The future stretched before them, uncertain but bright with possibility. Whatever challenges awaited, they would face them together, bound by something stronger than diplomacy, more enduring than politics. The simple, powerful truth that compassion transcends stars.